Kel's small spacecraft cut through the blackness of space like a silver dart, moving faster than the alien patrols could ever anticipate. He had been watching this system for months, studying its routes, patrol schedules, and communication signals. Every time he moved, he made sure no trace remained behind him. Yet he also knew that eventually someone would notice. That was part of the game. Humans had always thrived on unpredictability, on taking risks that others thought impossible. The planet beneath him glimmered with vast cities of light, connected by streams of hovering vehicles and shimmering energy lines. The capital city of the Xylarian Empire, ruled by the young and brilliant Queen Lysara, was his destination. They called her the Star of the Empire. Only 23, but already famed across the galaxies for her intelligence and uncompromising rule. Many had tried to challenge her, and most had failed. Kale knew the risks. He had heard the stories, had seen the reports. The Xylarians were known for their technology and for punishing intruders without mercy, yet Kale didn't hesitate. His mind worked differently from most species. Where others saw barriers, he saw possibilities. Where others saw danger, he saw opportunity. The human species had survived because of this ingenuity, courage, and a willingness to face the unknown head-on. And that same ingenuity had brought him to this moment, gliding silently toward the city that had banned his people from even entering their space. He maneuvered through the outer defense grids with precision. Alien sensors scanned for movement, heat signatures, and unusual energy emissions. Kel's small ship had been modified to produce almost no heat and to emit only minimal signals. The Xylarian scanners registered nothing out of the ordinary. The patrol drones, fast and precise, buzzed past him like insects, oblivious to the human weaving effortlessly between them. Kale smiled slightly. Not bad, he muttered in his own language, though no one could hear him. Not bad at all. By the time he reached the upper atmosphere, the capital city sprawled beneath him, a labyrinth of towering structures, glowing bridges, and hovering platforms. Every building reflected the advanced technology of the Xylarians, but none could predict the audacity of a human entering their realm with calm determination. Kale could almost feel their curiosity, their confusion. He had become a ripple in their perfect order. As he landed his ship in a secluded area near the outskirts of the city, the alien patrols finally noticed the anomaly. Small alert signals blinked in the control centers, warning that a human craft had entered the system. Within minutes, the report reached Queen Lysara herself. "Human," she said softly, her voice carrying authority and curiosity. She stood on the observation platform of her throne room, gazing at the city lights below. At 23, she had already faced countless crises. Yet something about this report unsettled her. Humans were supposed to be rare, weak, and largely irrelevant in galactic affairs. Yet here was one, entering her city without hesitation, unafraid. "Prepare the enforcers," she commanded. "Bring him in. I want to see him." Her words were calm, but the enforcers could feel the intensity behind them. They were elite warriors, trained for decades to capture the most dangerous intruders. Yet as they deployed in swift, precise squads, a small doubt lingered in their minds. Something about humans was unpredictable. Something about this one, in particular, seemed different. Kale moved through the city with careful steps, yet every step seemed deliberate and confident. He avoided patrols with ease, not by hiding but by predicting their movements, anticipating patterns, and adapting instantly. Where alien scanners would detect him, he altered his heat signature. Where they expected him to take one route, he took another. Humans were known for creativity, for seeing solutions where others saw only walls. And Kale embodied that fully as he approached the central district. Whispers of his presence began to spread. Citizens who caught glimpses of him were struck by his calm demeanor. He carried no weapons, yet he seemed untouchable. The enforcers grew frustrated. They had superior technology, stronger ships, and advanced strategies. But every attempt to corner Kale ended in failure. He was always one step ahead, turning their traps into trivial obstacles. Meanwhile, Queen Lysara observed the situation from her floating throne room above the city. She was young, yes, but not naive. She had studied human history in secret, fascinated by the stories of how such a fragile species had survived, thrived, and even challenged entire empires. And now, one of them had come to her city not in fear, not in submission, but with an audacity that defied all expectation. Why does he move like he wants to be seen? Lysara asked her chief advisor. He could disappear at any moment, yet he walks openly, as if he wishes for me to notice him, her advisor. A stoic Xylarian with decades of service frowned. He is bold, your majesty. Perhaps dangerously so. We should prepare for confrontation. Lysara shook her head. No, watch him. Learn from him. Her amber eyes glimmered with curiosity. There is something in him, something humans have that we do not fully understand. Kale, unaware of the queen's gaze, continued his careful march toward the heart of the city. Every turn, every movement was calculated. He studied the alien architecture, noticing details others overlooked. Small energy conduits, patterns in security patrols, timing of surveillance drones, everything became data in his mind. Everything became a puzzle he was determined to solve. At one point, he encountered a patrol drone, sleek and metallic, scanning the streets for anomalies. Most intruders would panic, would flee, would hide. Kale did none of these things. Instead, he moved calmly, letting the drone pass, subtly altering the reflections of the surrounding structures so its sensors misread his position. It passed him without detecting a thing. Kale smirked. Predictable, he whispered. Hours passed. The sun on this planet didn't rise as humans knew it. The city lights glimmered under the artificial glow of energy towers and floating highways. Kale made steady progress toward the central district, where Lysara's throne room floated like a jewel above the city. Citizens began murmuring, speaking in hushed tones about the human who walked unchallenged through the city. The enforcer's frustration grew. Every strategy failed. Every attempt to corner him ended in humiliation for the best-trained warriors of the Empire. By evening, Kale reached the steps that led up to the central platform, the towering structure where the queen ruled. He paused, taking in the grandeur, the scale, the shimmering energy fields. This was the heart of power in the Xylarian Empire. And yet, he walked forward with unwavering confidence, as if he belonged here. In the throne room, Lysara leaned forward on her seat, her eyes tracking his approach. She could feel it, the human's calm defiance, the strange sense of certainty that no one else possessed. Her curiosity had grown into fascination. Let him come, she said softly, almost to herself. Let him see me. I want to understand him. Kale's presence was a statement, a challenge, and an enigma all at once. He represented humanity in its purest form, resilient, clever, fearless, and endlessly adaptable. And as he approached the floating platform of the throne room, the first part of their story, this meeting of human ingenuity and alien authority, was about to unfold. He stepped onto the platform, calm, deliberate, and entirely unafraid. For Kale, the galaxy was vast and full of rules, but humans were masters at bending them, at turning fear into opportunity. And for Queen Lysara, a lesson in humility, curiosity, and respect for a species she had underestimated was about to begin. This was not the end of the chase, nor the beginning of a war. It was the start of something far more intriguing, a meeting of minds, a test of wits, and a revelation of what it truly meant to be human in a galaxy that had long believed humans to be insignificant. Kale moved through the city like a shadow that everyone could see but no one could touch. The streets shimmered with alien lights, and the air hummed with the energy of floating vehicles, hovering bridges, and pulsing energy lines. The city itself seemed alive, a network of technology and precision that had never known an intruder who could navigate it so confidently. Yet Kale moved as if he had been born here, his steps calm, deliberate, and completely unafraid. The enforcers were growing desperate. Queen Lysara had sent her best warriors, equipped with the fastest ships, advanced detection systems, and weapons that could incapacitate even the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. Yet each attempt to trap Kale ended in failure. He anticipated their movements, adapted to their tactics, and seemed to understand the patterns of their patrols instinctively. where the Xylarians relied on strict rules and predictable strategies. Kale relied on improvisation, intuition, and human ingenuity. He paused for a moment in a narrow alley, observing a squad of enforcers moving above him in hovering patrol craft. Their sensors swept the streets below, scanning for anomalies. But Kale had already analyzed their patterns. Using a small device he carried, he projected a faint energy distortion that confused their scanners, making him appear as though he had vanished. The enforcers reported nothing unusual, and after a tense moment, they moved on. Kale allowed himself a small smile. Still learning, he muttered quietly. Humans had survived for thousands of years because they adapted faster than anyone else. Meanwhile, news of the humans' movements reached Queen Lysara. She watched from her throne room, her amber eyes focused and sharp. Unlike most rulers, she did not panic when faced with a challenge. Instead, she observed, analyzed, and learned. This human intrigued her more than any threat ever had. He moved not in fear, but with confidence, as though he knew something the Empire did not. Why does he not fear us? Lysara asked her advisor. Even our most skilled enforcers cannot predict his path. Her advisor, an older Xylarian with decades of service, shook his head. It is unlike anything I have seen, Your Majesty. Humans are rarely this bold. They are clever, yes, but they usually fear confrontation with superior forces. This one seems different. Lysara's gaze did not leave the city below. Different, yes, and perhaps that is why he survives. Observe him, study him, learn from him. We cannot underestimate humans any longer. Kale continued through the city, noticing details that others overlooked. The Xylarians were meticulous, designing streets, buildings, and energy flows with precision. But they lacked the kind of thinking humans excel at: flexible, adaptive, creative problem solving. When he encountered obstacles, he did not panic. Instead, he studied them, learned their weaknesses, and moved through them with ease. A locked energy gate became a puzzle to solve rather than a barrier to fear. A hovering patrol craft became a timing exercise, and a maze of narrow walkways became a path of his choosing. At one point, he encountered a communication terminal that could have revealed his location instantly. Most intruders would have avoided it or destroyed it, but Kale examined it calmly. With a few careful manipulations, he fed false signals into the system, making it appear as though he had taken a different route entirely. When the enforcers realized the deception, it was already too late. Word of the humans spread quickly through the city. Citizens whispered in astonishment about the one who moved unchallenged through the streets. They had never seen such audacity, such calm in the face of danger. Even the city's security AI seemed unable to adjust to him. Kale was not just surviving. He was teaching the city a lesson in unpredictability, despite his calm exterior. Kale's mind was always analyzing. He studied the patterns of the enforcers, the behavior of the citizens, and even the architecture itself. Every detail was important. Every observation could give him an advantage. He was not reckless. He was precise. Humans had survived not by brute strength, but by using intelligence, creativity, and courage in equal measure. By midday, Kale reached a large plaza near the heart of the city. From here, he could see the floating platform where Queen Lysara ruled. It hovered above the streets, glowing with energy and authority. The enforcers had tried to block every approach, but Kale's understanding of timing, movement, and human intuition allowed him to navigate through. He paused to observe, taking in the scale and elegance of the central district. Lysara watched him from above. She felt a strange combination of frustration and admiration. Most intruders would have been captured or destroyed long before reaching this point. This human, however, moved freely, almost boldly, toward her throne. She leaned forward, her curiosity growing. There was something in his approach that defied everything she had known about other species. "Prepare for interception," she commanded softly, though her voice lacked urgency. "But do not attack yet. I want to see how he reacts under pressure." The enforcers moved in, surrounding Kale from multiple directions. Energy nets formed barriers, hovering drones circled, and armed guards stood at every visible exit. Most would panic in such a situation, But Kale did not. He analyzed quickly the timing of the drones, the range of the energy nets, and the positions of the guards. Then, with calm precision, he executed a series of maneuvers that left the enforcers confused. He avoided detection by blending with the shifting energy patterns of the plaza. When drones scanned for heat signatures, he altered his own by reflecting ambient energy, creating the illusion of empty space. Guards on the ground moved toward false signals, and Kale used their blind spots to navigate toward the floating platform. Every step he took was calculated, yet it seemed effortless. Leicester's eyes narrowed, not with anger, but with fascination. Humans were rarely so composed in the face of superior technology and overwhelming odds. This one, however, seemed almost untouchable. She leaned back in her seat and considered the possibilities. If a human could move through her city with such skill and calm, what else could he do? Could humans hold the key to solutions the Xylarians could not imagine? Kale paused for a moment at the base of the final ascent to the platform. He could see the enforcers regrouping, preparing for a coordinated strike. Most intruders would hesitate here, but not him. He had learned long ago that hesitation was dangerous. Humans survived by acting decisively, by thinking quickly, and by using every resource at their disposal. Taking a deep breath, he moved forward with complete confidence. The ascent was the final test. Energy fields shifted, security measures activated, and drones patrolled at unpredictable intervals. Yet Kel's human mind adapted instantly. He observed the patterns, predicted their timing, and moved in perfect sync. Each step brought him closer to the throne room and closer to the moment that would define the encounter between human ingenuity and alien authority. As he reached the threshold of the platform, Lysara stood, her presence commanding and majestic. She watched silently, not as a ruler commanding obedience, but as a student observing a fascinating experiment. Kel's movements had proven something extraordinary. Humans were not weak, not fragile, not insignificant. They were clever, adaptable, and courageous in ways the galaxy had rarely witnessed. Kale stepped onto the platform, his posture calm and deliberate. He carried no weapon, showed no fear, and radiated a quiet confidence that unsettled the enforcers and intrigued the queen. This was a species that survived through intelligence, courage, and unpredictability, and it was walking willingly into the heart of her power. For a moment, the city seemed to hold its breath. Citizens paused in the streets, drones hovered silently, and even the enforcers stopped to watch. Humans had always been underestimated, but Kel's presence challenged every assumption. He was not here to fight recklessly or to flee. He was here to demonstrate something far greater, the strength of human ingenuity, and the courage to face the unknown. Lysara's amber eyes gleamed with curiosity. She had faced countless threats, yet none had approached with such confidence and calm. She felt a strange respect for this human who had defied expectations and survived where others would have failed. "Let him come closer," she whispered. "I must see this for myself." Kale took another step, entering fully into the platform that would lead him to the throne room. The enforcers tightened their formations, but they knew deep down that this human was unlike any intruder they had ever faced. Every instinct, every pattern they had learned to rely upon, was useless against him, and for Queen Lysara, the moment was both unsettling and exhilarating. This was not the end of a chase. It was the beginning of a test, a meeting of minds, and a revelation. Humans, she realized, had something the Xylarians did not fully understand: creativity, courage, and the ability to adapt when the odds were against them. And Kale, stepping willingly toward her, was about to show her exactly what that meant. Kale stepped onto the floating platform, leaving behind the last of the city's streets and the chaotic movements of enforcers. The platform hummed softly with energy, a shielded surface that separated the throne room from the bustling capital below. Above him, the glow of the city reflected against the platform's metallic sheen, creating an almost surreal effect, like walking through a sky full of stars. Every eye below, citizens, drones, and enforcers alike watched in astonishment as the human moved steadily toward the center. The throne room itself was vast and elegant. Energy pillars floated in the air, casting soft light that danced across the polished floor. The walls were made of translucent material, showing the city below like a living mural of movement and light. At the far end, Queen Lysara sat on her throne, a figure of authority and poise. Even at 23, she radiated confidence, her posture perfect, her amber eyes sharp and curious. She had faced rebellion, intrigue, and intergalactic threats. Yet something about Kale unsettled her in a way she had never expected. Kale stopped a few meters from the throne, his movements deliberate and calm. He carried no weapons. His hands were relaxed at his sides, his shoulders straight, and his gaze steady. The enforcers stiffened, unsure whether to intervene. Most species, when faced with the Queen's presence and the overwhelming security, would have fallen to their knees or tried to escape. But Kel's demeanor was different. It radiated a quiet confidence, a kind of human courage that had carried his species through centuries of adversity. Queen Lysara rose slowly, her eyes never leaving him. She studied him, noticing the human traits that distinguished him from every alien she had ever encountered. The way he breathed calmly despite danger, the way his gaze remained direct without challenge or fear, and the subtle way his body moved with confidence and purpose. This was a being unshaken by intimidation, unbound by expectations, and fully in control of himself. "You have come far," Lysara said, her voice clear and melodic, carrying across the throne room without a hint of fear or anger. "Yet you stand here unafraid, in a place no human has ever entered without permission." White Kale tilted his head slightly, observing her carefully. "Because fear does not guide me," he replied in broken but understandable Xylarian, the alien language practiced and perfected over long months of study. Humans survive by learning, by observing, by acting with both courage and reason, and I wish to understand. Lysara's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in intrigue. She had faced many intruders, but few had spoken with such directness and clarity. Most had begged for mercy or attempted to fight, but Kel's approach was something new. It was as if he wanted to meet her, not challenge her. Yet she felt the weight of his presence. There was an intelligence in his eyes, a calculated awareness that even the most advanced Xylarian warriors might not fully grasp. "Do you not fear my enforcers?" she asked, gesturing to the hovering guards around him. "They are trained to capture, to destroy. Even the cleverest intruder is usually subdued quickly." Kel's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. "I expected them," he said. "I studied their patterns, their timing, their limits. Humans do not act without observation. We survive because we learn from everything around us, and we adapt quickly." A murmur ran through the enforcers. They were highly trained, elite warriors, yet this human had anticipated their every movement. Queen Lysara herself felt a flicker of admiration, unusual for a ruler who trusted intellect over emotion. She studied Kale carefully. Perhaps humans were not as weak as history suggested. Perhaps there was a strength hidden in unpredictability, in creativity, and courage. "You speak boldly for one who is outnumbered and outmatched," Lysara said. "Most would have been crushed under the weight of this room alone. Yet you speak as though you belong here." Kale took a step closer, still careful, still composed. "I do not claim to belong," he said. "But I know this. Humans are underestimated because others fail to understand us. We survive, we thrive, because we take risks others avoid. We think creatively, and we act decisively. And when faced with the impossible, we find a way." The queen leaned forward slightly, resting her hands on the arms of her throne. Her mind raced. Humans had long been considered fragile, incapable of significant influence in galactic affairs. Yet here was one, standing willingly in her throne room, demonstrating a calm intelligence that rivaled even the most brilliant Xylarian minds. She had studied human history in secret, learning of their resilience and adaptability. But seeing it firsthand was far more impressive. "Impressive," she admitted softly. "You possess qualities our empire does not fully value. Courage, observation, creativity, and a willingness to act where others hesitate. How did you survive your journey here?" Kel's gaze did not waver. "By understanding what others expect, and then doing something different." Humans survive because we are unpredictable. We see patterns, and then we break them. We see rules, and then we adapt them to serve a greater purpose. And above all, we face challenges directly. We do not hide. The enforcer shifted uneasily, unsure whether to react. Kel's words carried an authority that no amount of training could suppress. Even Lystra's own instincts told her that this human was something remarkable, something she could not dismiss with weapons or force alone. "You walk willingly into my throne room," Lysara said, her voice steady, "yet you carry no weapons and show no intent to flee. Most species would see this as madness or arrogance. What is it that gives you such confidence?" Kale considered her question for a moment. "Experience," he said simply. "Humans survive because we take responsibility for our actions. We do not wait for others to act. We do not rely on luck alone. We observe, we learn, and we act decisively. Confidence comes from preparation, from knowledge, and from knowing your own strengths." Lysara's eyes glimmered with curiosity. Humans were clever, yes, but Kel's words carried something deeper, demonstration of self-awareness and strategy, combined with courage. She had ruled many territories, faced countless challenges. Yet she could not deny the pull of admiration for this human. He had walked into the heart of her empire and stood unflinching, proving that humans were a species to be reckoned with. "You may be bold," Lysara said, leaning back, "but boldness alone does not survive in the galaxy. You need intelligence, cunning, and adaptability. Do you truly possess these qualities, or do you merely speak them?" Kale smiled faintly. "Words are easy," he admitted. "Actions, that is where humans prove themselves. Watch and see. I survive because I adapt. I solve problems because I think differently, and I face danger because I must. That is how humans endure." The queen studied him silently. Every word, every movement, every glance seemed deliberate, carefully measured, and yet entirely natural. She realized that Kel's human traits, courage, adaptability, intelligence, were not just individual qualities. They were the essence of a species that thrived on challenges, that excelled where others faltered. "You are unlike any intruder I have ever faced," Lysara said finally. "Most would flee at the first sight of my enforcers. Most would beg for mercy or attempt to fight. You come here willingly, calm, and without threat. You carry nothing but your own skill, your own mind." Kale took another step forward, closer to the throne. "Because the greatest strength lies not in avoiding danger, but in meeting it," he said. "Humans survive because we act when others hesitate. We learn when others ignore. We adapt when others fail. And I am here because I wish to understand, to learn, and perhaps to show that humans are not as weak as history says." A silence filled the throne room. The enforcers held their positions, unsure how to respond. Queen Lysara sat in quiet contemplation, her mind racing with thoughts she had never expected. This human, this bold, calm, clever creature had walked into her domain unafraid, had spoken with clarity and intelligence, and had demonstrated qualities she admired. Yet he was still unpredictable, still dangerous, still entirely human. "You intrigue me," Lysara said at last, her voice soft but commanding. "You survive where others fail. You speak with clarity where others stumble. You act where others hesitate. Perhaps humans are more remarkable than I have been led to believe. Perhaps you will teach me something about your kind and about the universe itself." Kale met her gaze evenly, unflinching. "Perhaps," he said simply, "or perhaps you will teach me something about yours." And with that, the first true understanding began between human and queen. It was not a friendship, nor an alliance, nor a confrontation. It was the beginning of a meeting of minds, a test of courage and intelligence, and a revelation of what it meant to be human in a galaxy that had long underestimated their kind. Queen Lysara observed Kale from her throne, her amber eyes shining with curiosity. He had entered her throne room unarmed, calm, and completely unafraid. Most rulers would have seen this as a threat or a challenge, but Lysara felt something different. Humans were unpredictable. They had survived in the galaxy for centuries despite being weaker than most species. Their strength lay in their intelligence, courage, and creativity. Kale was proving that to her in real time. I want to see how far your abilities go," she said softly, almost to herself. Then she spoke aloud. "Kale, I will not harm you, but you will face tests. If you succeed, it will prove much about your species. If you fail, well, we shall see." Kale nodded calmly. "I am ready," he said. He had anticipated this moment. Humans survived because they were prepared, because they could think faster and adapt to challenges that others deemed impossible. The first test was a challenge of intellect. Lysara waved her hand, and a large holographic maze appeared in the center of the throne room. The maze was filled with moving barriers, shifting floors, and traps designed to confuse even the most intelligent species. Enforcers watched, expecting Kale to hesitate, to panic. But he studied the maze carefully. Kale observed patterns in the moving barriers and the timing of the traps. He noticed how certain sections repeated, forming a rhythm. He calculated the best path in his mind, adjusted to the timing of the moving obstacles, and moved forward. Step by step, he navigated the maze with precision, never rushing, never hesitating. By the time he reached the exit, the enforcers were astonished. They had expected a human to fail. Yet Kale had solved a puzzle that even the brightest Xylarian minds would find challenging. Lysara leaned forward slightly, impressed. "You think quickly," she said. "Humans survive because you can observe and act faster than others expect." Kale nodded. Not boastful but confident. Observation and adaptation. That is how humans endure. The second test was physical and mental. Lysara activated a gravity maze, a space where the laws of gravity shifted unpredictably. Platforms rotated, walls moved, and entire sections floated upside down. Most species would have been disoriented, falling, or panicking. Kale, however, adjusted instantly. He jumped from platform to platform, timing his movements with careful calculation. He used momentum to glide through difficult areas and relied on instinct to adjust midair. When a platform shifted unexpectedly, the enforcers watched in awe. Their training allowed them to move efficiently under normal gravity. But Kale moved through impossible angles and changing forces as if he had trained in them for years. Humans had a natural sense of balance and adaptability that no alien technology could replicate. Every step Kale took was precise, yet seemed effortless. He reached the end of the maze without a single mistake. Lysara clapped softly, a rare gesture from a queen known for her composure. "Impressive," she said. "You are physically capable. Yes, but it is more than that. Humans survive because you adapt, even under conditions designed to defeat you." Kale smiled faintly. "Adaptation is survival. We do not fear change. We embrace it." The third test involved communication and empathy. Lysara projected a holographic simulation of a species that communicated entirely through emotion, a form of language that no words could convey. Most intruders would have been overwhelmed by the intensity of the emotions, or confused by the abstract signals. Kale, however, paused and observed. He focused not on the confusion but on the patterns, on subtle shifts in expression and tone. He learned to interpret the signals, understanding what the holographic creatures wanted, needed, or feared. He responded appropriately, matching his actions to their emotional state. The simulation reacted positively, showing Kale as a being capable of understanding even the most alien forms of communication. Lysara's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Empathy, observation, intelligence. Humans have a combination of traits we often overlook. You succeed because you see beyond what is immediate. You consider context, emotion, and consequence. Kale nodded. Humans survive because we think in more than one dimension. We observe, we adapt, we anticipate. Intelligence alone is not enough. Courage and empathy matter as much as skill. The fourth test was strategic. Lysara presented a scenario where Kale had to protect a group of civilians, trapped in a collapsing structure. The simulation was designed so that every path seemed blocked, every solution risky. Most species would have panicked, choosing a path based on instinct or the safest option. Kale analyzed the situation quickly. He identified weak points in the structure, calculated timing for each movement, and coordinated rescue actions. He adapted to sudden changes when walls collapsed or energy fields activated unexpectedly. Step by step, he led the civilians to safety, demonstrating human courage, intelligence, and adaptability in a complex, high-pressure scenario. The enforcers exchanged glances, realizing that this human was proving qualities their species rarely mastered. He combined strategy, creativity, observation, and courage in ways that even the most advanced aliens struggled to replicate. Lysara leaned back, her mind racing with possibilities. "You are remarkable," she said softly. "Humans are underestimated because we focus on strength, technology, and power. But you show something different. You survive because you think, adapt, and act decisively." Kale bowed his head slightly. "Observation, adaptation, courage. That is humanity. We survive because we face challenges directly and learn from them." The final test was the most personal. Lysara challenged Kale to navigate a scenario that tested not only his intelligence and physical skill but also his moral judgment. She projected a complex situation where decisions had consequences for multiple parties. Kale had to choose paths that affected the lives of simulated citizens, his own safety, and the stability of the Empire. Most species would have struggled, overwhelmed by the weight of responsibility. Kale, however, analyzed the situation calmly. He weighed risks, anticipated outcomes, and made choices that minimized harm while achieving the objectives. He demonstrated human decision-making in its finest form, creative, adaptive, and guided by both reason and conscience. When the simulation ended, Lysara remained silent for a moment. She had expected skill, perhaps courage, maybe intelligence. What she had witnessed was far beyond that. Kale had shown her something she had rarely encountered, a species capable of thinking, adapting, and acting in ways that challenged the very assumptions of the galaxy. "You have exceeded every expectation," Lysara said at last. "Your species is underestimated, and yet you thrive in circumstances designed to defeat you. Humans survive because you combine qualities that others rarely possess together: courage, intelligence, empathy, and adaptability." Kale met her gaze steadily. "We survive because we face the impossible and do not give up. We adapt, we learn, and we act. That is how humans endure. That is how we thrive." The throne room fell silent. The enforcers, usually unshakable, were astonished. They had never seen a human demonstrate such skill, composure, and intelligence in such a variety of challenges. Lysara herself felt a strange mixture of admiration, curiosity, and respect. She realized that humans were not a weak species to be dismissed, but a unique force, capable of achieving what most species considered impossible. "You are extraordinary, Kale," she said finally, "and you have taught me something about your species I never fully appreciated. Humans are clever, courageous, and adaptable. You thrive where others fail, not because of technology or brute strength, but because of your mind, your spirit, and your will." Kale bowed slightly. "That is humanity. We endure because we learn. We survive because we adapt. And we act because we must." For Lysara, the lesson was clear. Humans were not merely survivors. They were innovators, thinkers, and problem solvers. They could face the galaxy's most complex challenges and emerge victorious, not because of superiority in technology or strength, but because of qualities that could not be replicated. And for Kale, the test had confirmed what he already knew. Humans excel where others falter, thrive where others fail, and endure because they refuse to give up. The Xylarian Empire had underestimated him, underestimated his species, and underestimated the power of human ingenuity. Now, standing in the heart of the Empire, he had proven the truth. Humans were more than capable of meeting any challenge. Even in the most alien and dangerous situations, Queen Lysara leaned back, a thoughtful expression on her face. She had seen strength, courage, and intelligence, but the human before her had shown something else: resilience, adaptability, and a will to succeed that defied every expectation. Humans were remarkable, and Kale had proven that in ways that no simulation, weapon, or strategy could replicate. For the first time, Lysara understood that humans were not a species to fear. nor a species to underestimate. They were a species to watch, to study, and perhaps to ally with. And Kale, standing calmly and confidently before her, had become the embodiment of all that was extraordinary about humanity. Kale stood quietly in the throne room, calm and composed. Even after passing every test Queen Lysara had designed, each challenge had demonstrated not only his skill and intelligence, but also the adaptability and courage that humans had cultivated over centuries. Lysara watched him closely, her mind racing. The enforcers remained silent, their usual confidence tempered by awe. Humans were not weak, fragile, or insignificant. Kale had proven that they were clever, resilient, and capable of things few in the galaxy could imagine. Lysara rose slowly from her throne, her amber eyes fixed on him. "Kale," she said softly, "you have shown me something remarkable. Your species is underestimated, and yet you thrive in ways we did not anticipate. You have passed every challenge, every test, and yet you stand before me unharmed. Why should I not view you as a threat?" Kale met her gaze steadily. "Because I'm not here to fight," he replied. "I am here to demonstrate what humans are capable of. We survive because we learn, because we adapt, because we act with courage and reason. We face danger willingly, not recklessly, but with purpose. I am here to show you that humans are more than history suggests, not to destroy what you have built." Lysara studied him, weighing her options. She had faced threats before, enemies who sought power, revenge, or conquest. But Kale was different. He was not seeking power in her empire, nor did he act out of fear or desperation. He had acted with intelligence, foresight, and calm confidence. He had faced impossible challenges and excelled. He had proven that humans possessed qualities that even the most advanced aliens struggled to match. "You are clever," Lysara said finally. "You are courageous. You think differently from any species I have encountered. And yet, you come here willingly, into the heart of my empire, and expect me to trust you. Why should I?" Kale's voice was calm, steady, and measured. "Trust is earned, Your Majesty. I did not ask for blind faith. I ask only for understanding. Humans survive because we face the impossible, not because we are stronger, faster, or more technologically advanced. We survive because we adapt, we learn, and we act decisively. My presence here is proof of that. My actions show that humans can navigate challenges that others believe insurmountable." For a long moment, the throne room was silent. Even the enforcers held their breath. Lysara felt a mixture of admiration and caution. She had underestimated humans, as had many others in the galaxy. Kale had entered her empire unarmed, passed every test, and demonstrated a combination of intelligence, courage, and adaptability that few species could rival. She realized that humans were not a threat in the conventional sense. They were a force of innovation, unpredictability, and resourcefulness. "I have seen your abilities," she said at last. "I have seen your courage and intelligence. I understand now that humans are a species to respect, not fear. And yet, the question remains, what do you seek here?" Kale's eyes met hers, unwavering. "I seek understanding, Your Majesty. I seek to learn about your empire, your people, and your ways. And I seek to show that humans can contribute, can solve problems, and can excel in situations that others cannot. I did not come to challenge your rule or your authority. I come to demonstrate that humans are capable, resilient, and valuable." Lysara considered his words carefully. She had faced countless decisions as queen, many involving diplomacy, strategy, and risk. She understood the value of allies, the dangers of enemies, and the potential of individuals who could alter the course of events. Kale was one such individual. He had proven his worth through intelligence, courage, and adaptability. He had not relied on strength, weapons, or intimidation. He had relied on human ingenuity. "You have walked into my throne room willingly," Lysara said, "passed every test I could devise, and spoken with clarity and confidence. You have shown that your species is underestimated, yet capable of extraordinary feats. You could have been captured, exiled, or destroyed. Instead, you face me honestly and openly. That is rare, even among the bravest of aliens, Kale inclined his head slightly. Humans survive because we face challenges directly. We do not flee from danger, nor do we act recklessly. We observe, we learn, and we adapt. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. That is how we endure, and that is how we thrive. Lysara felt a rare sense of admiration, mingled with curiosity. She realized that Kale represented more than just a single human. He embodied the strengths of his species: intelligence, courage, adaptability, and resilience. Humans had survived in a galaxy full of powerful civilizations because they were unpredictable, resourceful, and willing to face challenges head-on. Kale had demonstrated all of these qualities in her throne room, proving that humans were a force the galaxy had underestimated. "Very well," Lysara said finally, her voice firm but thoughtful. "You have proven yourself, Kale. You have passed every test, demonstrated exceptional skill, and shown qualities that my empire rarely sees. I cannot deny your worth. You are not a threat in the way I had feared. You are remarkable." Kale nodded, a calm and respectful gesture. "Thank you, Your Majesty. Humans survive because we learn, adapt, and act. I hope to show you that we can also contribute, that we can help solve problems, and that our abilities are not limited to survival alone." Lysara studied him for a moment longer, then spoke decisively. "You will remain here, at my side, as a representative of humanity. You will help us understand your species, and perhaps, in time, guide us in ways that only humans can. You will not be a prisoner, nor a guest. You will be an advisor, a consultant, and a bridge between your people and my empire." Kale's eyes glimmered with quiet pride. This was more than he had hoped for. Humans were rarely trusted in alien civilizations. They were underestimated, dismissed, or feared. Yet here he was, recognized not for brute strength, not for technology, but for ingenuity, courage, and adaptability. Lysara had seen the truth. Humans were remarkable, and Kale had proven it. The enforcers, who had witnessed his trials and interactions, bowed respectfully. They understood that this human was not like any intruder they had ever faced. Kale had demonstrated qualities that challenged their assumptions and expanded their understanding of what was possible. Humans were clever, adaptable, and courageous, and they could excel even in the most difficult situations. Lysara turned her gaze back to Kale. "You have shown me that humans are more capable than I imagined. I will not underestimate them again. Your presence here marks the beginning of a new understanding between our species. You will help us see what humans can achieve, and we will learn from you as much as you learn from us." Kale inclined his head once more, acknowledging her decision. "I will do my best, Your Majesty. Humans endure, adapt, and learn. We survive because we act with purpose, courage, and intelligence. I hope to show you that our abilities are more than survival. They are the potential to excel in ways others cannot predict." For Lysara, the realization was profound. Humans had been underestimated for centuries, dismissed as fragile and insignificant. Yet Kale had walked into her throne room willingly, passed every test, and demonstrated the very essence of human ingenuity. She understood now that humans were not merely survivors, they were innovators, problem solvers, and a species capable of thriving in the most challenging environments. "You have earned your place here, Kale," Lysara said finally. "Not as a prisoner, not as a guest, but as a valued member of this empire. Your species is extraordinary, and you have proven it today. Let this be the beginning of a partnership, not of fear, but of understanding, cooperation, and respect." Kale's expression remained calm, but a quiet determination shone in his eyes. Humans thrive because they faced challenges directly, adapted to circumstances, and acted with courage and intelligence. He had proven it in Lysara's throne room, and now he would continue to prove it in the broader empire. The enforcers relaxed. The tension in the room lifted, and the citizens who had witnessed parts of this remarkable event began to understand something new. Humans were not weak. Humans were clever, adaptable, courageous, and capable of achievements that few species could imagine. Kale's presence in the throne room symbolized a new era, one where humans would no longer be underestimated, Lysara returned to her throne, a thoughtful expression on her face. She had faced many challenges as queen, but Kael had given her something far more valuable than victory or submission. He had given her insight into a species she had underestimated, a glimpse of qualities that could change her empire and perhaps the galaxy itself. Kael stood silently, ready to serve, observe, and guide where he could. Humans survived not because they were the strongest, not because they had the most advanced technology, but because they could think, adapt, and act decisively. Lysara had seen it firsthand, and the Xylarian Empire would never view humans the same way again. For the first time, in the quiet aftermath of trials and tests, Lysara understood the truth. Humans were extraordinary, and Kael, standing calmly in the heart of her empire, had proven it.